Oh God, I hate this.
Oh look, it's going everywhere. Hang on. Has anybody got a job?
What is that?
Oh look, it's everywhere.
I can't bear this bloody thing.
She once vowed to stand by him until his very last breath. Yet in the span of a single fleeting spring, Camilla transformed from a trusted companion into the one holding a blade to the very heart of the crown. As Charles lay quietly in his hospital bed, longing for a warm hand to chase away the chill, she chose instead to disappear into a cold, deliberate silence. Then, somewhere in Geneva, came whispers too enigmatic to explain, followed by covert arrangements serving her own private interests, and finally, a leak that cracked like thunder across the sky, exposing the deepest secrets buried within the royal family. Now, beneath the dazzling pageantry of royal ceremonies and the blinding glare of the media, a silent but ferocious war is unfolding. No longer the hushed disputes kept behind closed doors. This is a fight to the death for power, where the revelation of a single secret could shake the throne to its core. And in the heart of this hidden storm, Charles has quietly made a decision, one that will change the fate of them both forever. Yet the question still hangs heavy in the air. Will he preserve his honor, or will the crown fall before his counterstrike can be delivered? In March 2025, the London Clinic, an exclusive medical facility nestled in the heart of England's capital, became the quiet stage for the opening act of a royal tragedy. King Charles III, then 76, was weary from both his cancer treatments and a relentless string of royal tours across Europe and Asia. His diagnosis involved an immune-related disorder, non-fatal, yet serious enough to confine him to a hospital bed for several weeks. During those first days, Charles clung to his familiar optimism, smiling warmly at doctors, sharing jokes with nurses, and even posting cheerful messages to reassure the public. But deep down, he longed for the comfort of one person, the woman who had shared his life for decades, Queen Camilla. On the morning of his admission, Camilla made her appearance. She entered the room with polished grace, dressed in a pale blue silk coat and wearing her practiced, reassuring smile. She embraced Charles briefly, leaning close to whisper softly, "Darling, I'll be here with you." The royal press office swiftly released photos of them together, images meant to assure the nation that the king was being lovingly cared for. Camilla even took time to visit other patients, cultivating the image of a compassionate queen devoted to her people. Yet, before midday, she was gone. "I have an important meeting," she murmured in a calm but resolute tone. Charles nodded, concealing his disappointment, convinced she would return later that day. But the following days brought only silence. Camilla never came back. The king's hospital room felt emptier with each passing hour. He lay staring at the window, watching raindrops slide down the glass while aides quietly handled official papers beside his bed. William and Catherine came often, their visits brightened by flowers and stories of the children. Still, Camilla's absence hung over him like a storm cloud, an invisible pain deeper than any physical wound. His mind wandered to the past, to the time when he and Camilla had risked scandal to be together. After all the years and battles, how cruel it was that she now left him alone in his illness. Then came the headlines. The press reported that Queen Camilla was in Geneva, attending a global charity fund summit alongside world leaders and humanitarian groups. But behind that polished image of benevolence, one of Charles's most trusted aides uncovered disturbing truths. Away from the cameras, Camilla had arranged a confidential meeting with executives from a prominent Swiss investment fund specializing in food and tourism. Her true purpose? To secure a lucrative financial deal for her son from her first marriage, Tom Parker Bowles, and his struggling chain of fine dining restaurants. Tom had long been his mother's pride, a celebrity chef with a growing culinary empire offering modern takes on royal cuisine. Yet business had faltered in the aftermath of the pandemic. Seeing an opportunity, Camilla used her royal position as leverage, offering the investors the right to associate their brand with the monarchy, a privilege only she could grant. In exchange, they would channel millions into Tom's ventures. When Charles learned of this, the revelation struck him like a blow. He lay rigid in bed, fists clutching the sheets, his eyes burning with disbelief. "She's using the crown," he muttered to his aide, his voice trembling with restrained fury. "And she's left me here alone." As the days dragged on, a storm brewed inside the king. Camilla's emotional distance felt like a knife to the heart. Each morning, waking to an empty chair beside him, he questioned whether their marriage still held any meaning. The tabloids began to whisper about her absence, and despite the palace's desperate attempts to control the narrative, fragments of truth escaped. The empty space next to his hospital bed had become more than loneliness. It was the first tremor of a conflict that would shake the monarchy itself. By the time his discharge approached, Charles made a quiet decision. He would not call her. Instead, he turned his energy toward recovery, discussing the crown's future with William. Yet deep inside, bitterness lingered. He sensed that once he returned to Buckingham Palace, nothing would be as it was before. And he was right. March 2025 marked the moment when love began to erode, replaced by ambition, and loyalty within the royal household faced its ultimate test. In April 2025, Clarence House, King Charles III's private residence, seemed cloaked in a somber chill, even as spring sunlight warmed the streets of London. The king had been discharged from the hospital for several weeks, his health gradually improving after his ordeal, but the wound left by Camilla's absence refused to heal. Each morning he awoke hoping the loneliness was only a passing dream, only to be confronted by the truth. The woman who had once been his greatest support had grown distant and cold. Determined to occupy his mind, Charles immersed himself in work, holding virtual meetings with the Prime Minister and international leaders about climate initiatives, his lifelong passion. For a few hours each day, those conversations dulled the ache. Yet every evening, when he returned to his vast, silent quarters, the emptiness enveloped him once more. The antique paintings and ornate furniture seemed lifeless. The only sounds were the ticking of the clocks and the mournful wind brushing against the windows. When Camilla returned from Geneva, she behaved as though nothing had changed. In public, she maintained her perfect composure, smiling for cameras, greeting crowds, and performing her charitable duties flawlessly. But in private, her demeanor was ice-cold. Their conversations had become mechanical, reduced to brief, tense exchanges. Charles could feel it. The warmth between them had vanished, replaced by a wall of silence. He began to wonder if she was concealing something, or if indifference had simply taken root after years of pressure in her role as queen. Then, one rainy London afternoon, as silver drops trailed down the study window, Camilla entered Charles's office with a stern, emotionless expression. Two well-dressed men followed, high-profile divorce lawyers known for representing Britain's elite. Their black suits gleamed under the soft light, their presence radiating formality and cold intent. Charles, seated at his desk and reviewing reforestation documents, looked up in surprise. "Camilla," he said cautiously, his voice steady yet wary. "What is this about?" Without answering, she approached and placed a thick folder on his desk. On the cover, bold letters spelled out, "Divorce Agreement." The sight made Charles's heart seize. The rain outside grew louder, filling the heavy silence between them. "Charles," she began evenly, her tone cutting and precise, "I want to handle this civilly. 400 million pounds. That's what I'm asking. With that, I'll leave quietly, without scandal or trouble. We've shared many years together, but now it's time to go our separate ways." For a moment, the world seemed to collapse around him. Charles stared at the folder, then at the woman standing before him, the woman for whom he had once risked everything. Dressed in a sleek black ensemble, her silver hair perfectly arranged, Camilla's eyes betrayed no hesitation, no remorse. After a pause, she spoke again, her words laced with menace. "You know what I have, don't you?" "The confidential documents. Proof of those offshore financial transfers you approved to conceal royal debts. Enough to ignite an international corruption scandal. Private recordings from your discreet political meetings, your words about manipulating public opinion could destroy not only your reputation, but the stability of the government itself. And the letters, Charles, the ones between you and foreign tycoons, exposing questionable promises for political backing. I don't want to use them, but if I must..." Her threat sliced through him like a knife. Beneath the desk, Charles's fists tightened until his nails pierced his palms. This was the same woman who had once comforted him through the darkest nights, who had stood beside him when his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, passed away. Now she was turning their shared secrets into weapons. This was no longer a private dispute. It was blackmail of the highest order, a political ambush threatening the monarchy's very soul, and the legacy Charles had devoted his life to preserving. He sat silently for a long moment, struggling to contain the fury and heartbreak surging inside him. Tears welled in his eyes, but he quickly brushed them away. "What are you doing, Camilla?" he asked hoarsely. "After all we've endured, the scandals, the sacrifices, you're really doing this? Do you truly believe power and money are worth more than love? You promised to stand by me until the end, and now..." Camilla's lips curled into a faint, lifeless smile. She took a seat across from him while the two lawyers stood behind her like silent sentinels. "Charles, you've always lived in a dream world," she replied coldly. "You chase ideals, your perfect monarchy, your green legacy, your image as the virtuous king. But I live in reality. My son Tom is struggling, and I will protect him. If you refuse my terms, I'll release everything. Then the public will see you as you truly are, not the saintly king, but the man who betrayed his wife, hid money offshore, and conspired with politicians behind closed doors." The air grew suffocating. Charles rose, pacing toward the rain-soaked window. The blurred garden outside mirrored the haze in his mind. Diana's old letters flashed before him, accusations of betrayal he had tried for years to bury. If Camilla exposed these new scandals, his entire family, William, Harry, the monarchy itself, would be dragged into chaos. He turned back, his voice now calm but firm. "I won't let you destroy everything we've built. You've gone too far. Give me time to think. Not out of fear, but because I must protect what remains." Camilla nodded curtly, then left the room with her lawyers, the sharp click of her heels echoing like the tolling of a bell. Silence swallowed the space once more, broken only by the rhythmic patter of rain. Charles sank into his chair, overwhelmed by betrayal and despair. That night, he barely slept, his mind tormented by what lay ahead. At dawn, he called William on a secure line, his voice trembling. "Son," he said quietly, "I'm facing a storm. William's reply was steady and resolute. "You must defend the monarchy, Father, no matter how much it hurts. We'll stand with you." And so, April closed with a fragile truce hanging over Clarence House, a deadly calm before the storm. Charles knew the battle had only begun. Not a war of hearts, but of power, pride, and survival. On June 14, 2025, Horse Guards Parade, one of London's most iconic sights, burst into grandeur as the annual Trooping the Colour ceremony commenced, marking the sovereign's official birthday. It was the British monarchy's grandest event of the year, steeped in centuries of tradition. Thousands of soldiers paraded in immaculate red uniforms under a flawless blue sky, while crowds along the Mall waved Union Jacks and cheered with patriotic fervor. Millions tuned in from around the world to watch. King Charles III stood proudly upon the main dais beside Prince William and Princess Catherine, dressed in a striking scarlet military uniform adorned with gold insignia. He smiled and waved, exuding composure and royal poise, though his health was still fragile after months of recovery. Every movement was deliberate, an effort to project strength. But beneath the polished exterior, he wrestled with an invisible torment, the memory of Camilla's ruthless blackmail just 2 months earlier. Camilla, however, made her statement without words. She positioned herself deliberately on the far end of the platform, the physical distance between them serving as an unmistakable symbol of defiance. Dressed in an elegant white gown with a wide-brimmed feathered hat, she smiled flawlessly for the cameras, the image of grace. Yet behind the practiced charm, her actions revealed cold calculation. Throughout the ceremony, she avoided even a glance toward Charles. Instead, she leaned frequently toward a man standing beside her, a sleek figure in a tailored gray suit, none other than her son, Tom Parker Bowles's financial advisor, the same one connected to the Geneva investment deal. Observers noticed their discreet conversation, their lips moving beneath polite smiles. "New investments," he murmured, "and more ways to expand under the royal brand." Then came the line that froze everything. One of Charles's aides overheard Camilla whisper back, "If Charles refuses again, we'll leak the documents. The offshore accounts will destroy him." The message reached Charles moments later. Standing before thousands and watched by millions, he felt the sting of humiliation like a blade between his ribs. Amid the thunder of drums and the marching band's triumphant notes, the king's heart sank. He turned toward Camilla, hoping for the slightest gesture of reconciliation, but she met his gaze with deliberate indifference, turning her head toward the crowd with a cold, composed smile. The distance between them now felt like a chasm carved in stone, an unmistakable signal that the private war had gone public. Online, the fallout was immediate. Social media erupted with speculation. The hashtag Royal Rift climbed to the top of global trends within hours. Analysts and royal watchers dissected every look, every whisper, every inch between them. Some sympathized with the king, accusing Camilla of manipulative ambition. Others defended her, claiming the tension reflected the stress of Charles's declining health. Tabloids seized on the moment, splashing lurid headlines across front pages. "Queen Camilla defies King Charles at Trooping the Colour." Meanwhile, William and Catherine tried to steady the spectacle. With Catherine radiant in a light blue dress, she leaned toward her father-in-law and whispered gently, "Father, we're here. Don't let her shake you." William clasped Charles's hand, a rare and touching moment of royal unity. Their presence shielded him briefly from the emotional storm, but Charles knew the truth. This was only the surface. Beneath the pageantry, the monarchy stood on the edge of a dangerous unraveling. As the ceremony concluded, fireworks erupted above London, painting the evening sky in dazzling gold and crimson. The crowd's cheers echoed through the city. But in Charles's heart, darkness lingered. He rode back to Buckingham Palace in solemn silence, the cheers fading behind him. Camilla, however, made a deliberate choice to travel separately, a decision that stunned even the most seasoned royal aides. Back at the palace, Charles summoned his chief aide immediately. "Find out everything about that advisor," he ordered quietly. The ensuing report confirmed his fears. The man wasn't merely helping Camilla manage Tom's business interests. He was actively preparing to use the confidential documents as leverage in her ongoing power play. Such actions represented a grave breach of royal protocol and a direct threat to the crown's integrity. That night, Charles sat alone in his study, the echo of the parade drums still haunting him. The pageantry had ended, but the war within the monarchy had reached its peak. He realized that unless he acted swiftly, the institution he had dedicated his life to would be consumed by scandal, and Camilla, the woman he once trusted above all, would not hesitate to burn it all to protect her own bloodline. On June 18, 2025, Royal Ascot, the crown jewel of Britain's racing calendar where the elite gathered in their finery amid the thunder of hooves, became the unexpected stage for a royal catastrophe. As dawn broke, three of the nation's most powerful newspapers, The Times, The Guardian, and Daily Mail, exploded with identical sensational headlines. King Charles secretly transfers royal assets to Princess Catherine to sideline Queen Camilla. Leaked documents reveal explosive internal feud. The revelations were devastating. The reports accused Charles of quietly diminishing Camilla's influence after uncovering her secret financial dealings in Geneva, meant to enrich her son, Tom Parker Bowles. The papers even published extracts from the confidential documents Camilla had once used to threaten the king, records of offshore transactions allegedly used to conceal royal debts, and an email exchange between Charles and a foreign tycoon that hinted at underhanded political favors. They also claimed the king had begun transferring valuable royal assets, including estates, to Princess Catherine in an effort to safeguard the monarchy's legacy from Camilla's personal agenda. Within hours, the story spread like wildfire. The hashtag royal betrayal dominated global trends, gathering millions of reactions. What should have been a day of elegance and tradition was suddenly consumed by suspicion, scandal, and outrage. The truth behind the leak made the betrayal even crueler. The plan to protect royal holdings had been a secret discussion between Charles, William, and Catherine after his hospital stay, an effort to shield the throne from Camilla's April blackmail. But Camilla had discovered the plan by bribing one of Charles's trusted aides, who funneled her the details of those confidential meetings. That morning, at Clarence House, Charles read the newspaper over breakfast. His hands shook violently, coffee spilling across the tablecloth. His face drained of color. His chest felt tight, his heart hammering painfully. "Impossible," he muttered, voice cracking as he gripped the edge of the table for support. The woman he had once adored, his confidant through the storms of life, his partner through scandal and loss, had now used his own secrets against him. This wasn't just betrayal, it was annihilation. She had leaked not only the documents, but had deliberately dragged Catherine into the scandal, ensuring maximum humiliation. The thought that Camilla might have been collecting these secrets for years, preparing for this exact moment, sent a chill through him. Public trust in the king's integrity was shattered overnight, and Catherine's image as a future queen was now entangled in controversy. Camilla had moved from threat to open warfare. Later that afternoon, at the Royal Ascot grandstand, amid the glamour of top hats, champagne, and roaring crowds, the royal couple appeared together, yet miles apart. Charles, in a silver-gray suit, tried to greet dignitaries with his usual dignity, but his gaze kept drifting toward Camilla, who sat several seats away. She was radiant in a pastel floral dress, chatting lightly with Tom Parker Bowles's financial advisor, the same man connected to her secret Geneva dealings. Beneath her polished demeanor, her eyes gleamed with defiance. When their eyes met, it was not affection that passed between them, but fury. Then, to everyone's shock, Camilla rose. In full view of cameras and guests, she strode toward Charles. Leaning close, she hissed coldly, loud enough for nearby spectators to hear. "Do you really think giving everything to Catherine will protect you, Charles? I've already sent another video to the press, the one of you and that tycoon discussing election interference last year. If you don't pay the £400 million by the end of this week, the whole world will see who you truly are." Charles froze, every muscle rigid. The air left his lungs. Then, trembling with rage and humiliation, he stood and faced her. "You would destroy everything," he said, his voice shaking. "After everything we've lived through, you'd throw it all away for money and power? I loved you, Camilla. I trusted you, but I will not let you tear this family apart." The confrontation stunned the entire stand. The chatter of the crowd fell into a tense hush. Guests exchanged bewildered glances as reporters' cameras clicked furiously, capturing the breakdown of a royal marriage under the summer sun. Moments later, a journalist shouted through the chaos, "Your Majesty, are the rumors true? Were you involved in illicit financial deals?" Charles forced a composed smile and waved. "Today," he said quietly, "is for celebrating the races." But his hands were gripping the railing so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Inside, he was seething, realizing Camilla had chosen this moment, this public stage, to humiliate him and tighten her grip. By nightfall, the confrontation had become global news. Commentators called it the most shocking public scene in modern royal history. The press leak and the Ascot incident were a double strike, proving Camilla not only controlled the media narrative, but was ready to weaponize it in plain sight. That evening, Charles convened an emergency meeting with royal security and senior aides inside Buckingham Palace. The initial findings were damning. A close associate of Camilla's had sent the documents and video footage directly to the press. "This," Charles said quietly, his voice shaking with restrained fury, "is an unforgivable betrayal." He did not sleep that night. Alone in his study, the laughter and cheers of Ascot replaced by silence, he replayed every moment of their life together, the tenderness, the deceit, the slow poisoning of trust. But grief soon hardened into determination. The king, wounded and humiliated, began to plan his response. Royal Ascot 2025 would be remembered not for its races, but as the day a royal war erupted. On June 19, 2025, within the solemn walls of St. James's Palace, one of Britain's oldest royal strongholds, the destiny of the monarchy was being decided. The morning air hung cool and damp after a night of rain, droplets still clinging to the tall windows like silent tears. Inside the oak-paneled council chamber, beneath the portraits of kings long gone, a tense hush settled over the room. King Charles III entered, his expression firm yet weary, wearing a dark, tailored suit and a deep blue tie embroidered with the royal crest. Gone was the man once paralyzed by heartbreak and betrayal. from Camilla's cruel absence at his hospital bedside to the extortion in April, to the humiliating confrontation at Royal Ascot. In his place stood a monarch hardened by pain, ready to reclaim his crown's honor. After Camilla's public threat at Ascot to release another damning video linking him to political interference, Charles knew there was no time left for restraint. He had summoned the Privy Council, the monarchy's most powerful advisory body, including the Prime Minister, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and senior royal officials, to make a declaration that would alter the very course of royal history. The chamber fell utterly silent as Charles took his seat at the head of the long mahogany table, the red velvet chair creaking faintly beneath him. Pale sunlight filtered through the Gothic windows, tracing the lines of exhaustion carved into his face, scars of sleepless nights and months of anguish. He inhaled deeply, and when he spoke, his voice was resonant and commanding, carrying the authority of centuries. Ladies and gentlemen, we meet today to address a grave threat to the integrity and stability of the crown. Queen Camilla has violated every boundary of trust, wielding confidential matters, from private financial transactions to classified communications with foreign magnates, as tools of blackmail and coercion. As sovereign, I hereby declare the formal dissolution of my marriage to Camilla on grounds of betrayal and abuse of power. Effective immediately, all her royal duties and privileges are revoked. Princess Catherine, the Duchess of Wales, will assume all official engagements formerly under the Queen's purview. Furthermore, Camilla shall be removed from the royal will, and all financial and ceremonial entitlements will cease forthwith. The words struck the room like thunder. The sound of his pen signing the decree echoed sharply, final and irreversible, a symbolic sword cutting through decades of love and deceit. Around the table, members of the council exchanged grave glances. Some murmured in disbelief about Camilla's brazenness, recalling the chaos at Ascot and the scandalous leaks. Yet beneath their shock was a shared recognition. The king had done what duty required. Charles's composure masked a storm within. As he placed the pen down, his heart ached for what had once been. The laughter, the long walks at Highgrove, the bond that had defied public outrage. But all of that had turned to ashes. After she bribed a trusted aide, after she humiliated him before the world, love had become a weapon, and he its target. Without delay, Charles issued further orders. A specialized royal security task force was dispatched to Clarence House, with instructions to seize all incriminating materials, letters, recordings, emails, anything Camilla might use again. Among them were rumored to be Princess Diana's handwritten letters, the private correspondence with foreign tycoons, and even the alleged video of election interference Camilla had brandished as a threat. Every communication from her phone, computer, or hidden device was to be monitored in real time. As the council session continued, an aide burst into the room clutching a fresh intelligence report. "Your Majesty," he said breathlessly, handing over a phone transcript. The intercepted message read, "If Charles dares strip my title, I'll release the full video. He won't have a throne left to sit on." Charles's hands trembled slightly as he read. For a moment, rage and grief warred inside him. The betrayal was complete. Camilla had crossed into open treason. "Increase surveillance," he ordered curtly, his voice low but edged with steel. "She will not destroy what centuries have built." When the formalities ended, Charles looked around the chamber once more, meeting the eyes of every member present. His tone softened, yet carried the weight of conviction. This monarchy has endured wars, crises, and losses beyond imagination. It has stood because loyalty and truth prevailed. I will not allow deceit, no matter how intimate its source, to bring it down. Camilla has chosen betrayal. She must now face the consequences. One by one, the counselors rose and departed in solemn silence, leaving Charles alone beneath the high arched ceiling. He walked slowly to the balcony, gazing over the palace gardens where early summer roses swayed in the wind. The sun had broken through the clouds, casting golden light across the wet earth, a fragile symbol of hope. Relief and sorrow intertwined within him. Relief that he had finally acted. Sorrow for the love that had died along the way. Moments later, another intercepted message arrived from Camilla. "You think this is over? You'll regret crossing me." Charles read it once, then quietly deleted it. His expression did not change. "Continue the search," he told his aide. "No loose ends." That day the Privy Council became the king's sword, the final instrument cutting away the shadow that had haunted his reign. Yet Charles knew victory would not come easily. Camilla, bold and cunning, still had allies in the media and among powerful financiers. By afternoon, the first reports reached the palace. Camilla had attempted to contact a journalist using a concealed device, but the attempt had been intercepted just in time. Charles exhaled slowly, his shoulders relaxing only for a moment. He had won a battle, but not the war. As he looked once more toward the gardens below, the king understood one grim truth. This was no longer merely a personal tragedy. It was the fight for the soul of the British crown. On June 20th, 2025, Clarence House, once the warm and elegant home where King Charles III and Queen Camilla shared years of companionship, became the final battleground in their ruthless struggle for power. After the Privy Council's historic decision stripping Camilla of all royal duties, the tension between them had reached its breaking point, simmering like a volcano on the verge of eruption. Although Charles had already ordered the seizure of every confidential document, from Princess Diana's private letters to sensitive emails and videos exposing financial improprieties, he remained haunted by one fear: that Camilla, cunning and fearless, still possessed hidden copies that could unleash yet another scandal. Camilla, sensing her empire collapsing, refused to retreat quietly. With her influence fading and her reputation on the line, she decided to strike one final devastating blow, not only to reclaim control for her son Tom Parker Bowles's future, but also to salvage her own legacy. That morning, the media detonated another bombshell. A notorious tabloid ran a blaring headline across its front page: "King Charles accused of election interference in secret video, Queen Camilla tied to the leak?" The story contained an explosive snippet from an email exchange between Charles and a foreign tycoon, suggesting the king had privately backed a questionable business project in exchange for political funding. Though only fragments were published, the damage was instant. The accusation spread across every news network and social media platform, with hashtag Royal Corruption skyrocketing to the top of global trends. Public outrage swelled, questioning not only the king's integrity, but also Camilla's shadowy involvement in the leak. When the report reached Buckingham Palace, Charles's fury was volcanic. Trembling with disbelief, he slammed the paper onto his desk, his pulse racing. He immediately summoned Camilla to the drawing room at Clarence House. It was time for their final confrontation, one that would decide not only their marriage, but the monarchy's future. When Charles entered, the flickering light of the fireplace cast deep shadows across his face, illuminating both rage and sorrow. Camilla stood waiting, regal yet defiant in a simple black dress, her posture unbending. Her eyes met his with glacial calm. Without a word, Charles hurled the newspaper onto the polished table, the sound echoing like the crack of thunder. "Haven't you done enough, Camilla?" he thundered, voice quivering with restrained anger. You've already humiliated me before the world at Ascot. Must you destroy the monarchy itself now? My mother's legacy? All for your son's greed?" Camilla gave a cold, brittle smile and stepped closer, her tone dripping with venom. "You did this, Charles. You stripped me of everything at the Privy Council. My title, my dignity. Did you really think I'd fade quietly into the background? I still hold copies of every file you're terrified of, emails, recordings, videos. Restore my status, or give me the £400 million you promised, or I'll expose everything. And this time," she added sharply, "I'll take William and Catherine down with you." Her words hit like shrapnel. The memories of her earlier threats, the blackmail in April, the public humiliation at Ascot, flashed before Charles's eyes. The woman he once loved more than life itself had now become his greatest adversary. His voice broke with both fury and heartbreak. "You've betrayed me, Camilla. You've betrayed the very crown you swore to serve." He moved closer, his words trembling but resolute. "You think those secrets will save you? They won't. I've already had everything seized. You've lost your power, and you'll never endanger this throne again." The air crackled with tension. Then, in a sudden act of desperation, Camilla snatched her phone, her fingers flying across the screen, drafting an email to a tabloid editor with the full video of Charles's alleged meeting with the tycoon attached. But before she could hit send, royal security agents, stationed outside under Charles's direct order, burst through the door. They seized the phone immediately. The drafted message read chillingly, "This is the final proof. Publish if Charles refuses my demands." For a long moment, the room fell into silence. Charles stared at her, grief etched into every line of his face. "You've chosen this path, Camilla," he said softly, the steadiness in his voice masking the pain beneath. "I gave you every chance to stop. But you care only for power and money. Now you must face the consequences." Camilla's composure shattered. "You'll regret this, Charles!" she screamed, her voice hoarse with rage and despair. "You don't know what I'm capable of!" But Charles only shook his head, turned, and walked away. Behind him, the security team surrounded her, beginning a full search of her quarters. By evening, Clarence's house was under complete lockdown. Investigators confiscated every device, hard drive, and document in her possession. The palace swiftly issued a public statement denying the election interference allegations, asserting the king's commitment to transparency and duty. Slowly, the narrative began to shift. Reporters and commentators now speculated that Camilla herself had orchestrated the leaks as revenge, tarnishing her reputation beyond repair. And so June 20th became the point of no return. Isolated and disgraced, Camilla realized her empire had fallen. The channels to the press were cut off, her influence severed, her allies abandoning her one by one. The house that had once been filled with laughter, late-night talks, and shared dreams was now a tomb of betrayal and regret. Charles, though victorious, felt no triumph, only an ache that echoed through the empty halls. He had preserved the monarchy, but at the cost of love, trust, and peace. As night descended over Clarence's house, the flicker of the dying fire reflected in his weary eyes. The king understood what had truly been lost. Not just a marriage, but the last fragments of the man he used to be. How do you feel about Camilla's betrayal of Charles, and do you think she had a justifiable reason for her actions? Does Charles deserve sympathy for his decision to divorce and protect the throne? Or do you believe he was too harsh with Camilla? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.